sorry. Yeah.
Yori.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Nat. Yeah. Wait. Let me start by sharing my screen first. Okay. Let me know if you guys can see my screen.
Yes.
Yeah. So for today's agenda, so I'm basically going to introduce something about temporal. So probably I will start by explaining some of the use cases that should be suitable for temporal.
Okay.
So what does it solve? And yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Probably before jumping to the use case example, you can start with what is temporal. Temporal, yeah. So anyone can relate lah.
Yeah. That's what I'm planning for actually. Yeah. So in short, temporal is basically is a platform, and if you guys trying to search on the URL itself, it would say something like the workflow as a code. So what does it solve is basically I was quite excited because especially the last question about the bulk transfer API, right? Leo session about bulk transfer API. So basically that's one of the use cases that Temporal can solve because it can dealing with some of the complexity on how we are going to manage long running workflow and including like handling retries, time out and failure, and how are we going to make sure that the process is idempotent as mentioned by Ahmad. So those kind of things basically can be addressed by Temporal. But I can say what Temporal is not is basically if you're talking about the enterprise integration pattern, something that going to perform something like the protocol translation on how we map between different protocol like Corba, RPC, REST, GraphQL, and so on and so forth. So those kind of things from the enterprise integration pattern basically is not something Temporal will try to address. But in between, we can basically trying to combine this Temporal as the orchestration layer. So by orchestration layer means that let's say if we have like some use cases, and I believe that some of the business process would be pretty sure dealing with the kind of workflow, right? The business workflow. So let's say for the bulk transfer API or the one that I'm going to present after this is the money transfer. So those kind of workflow basically going to be dealing with a large amount of traffic, which can be low running process as well. And within the process, we can expect that there might be some different microservices involved. So that is something that Temporal going to help us basically. So if the one that I'm presenting right now on the screen is the Temporal architecture, so we can imagine that this gonna be like the user application, like CMS probably that going to dealing with the cash management service. But in between, we can like deploy our workflow application, something like the one that I mentioned before, like bulk transfer or the cash transfer service. So those kind of workflow can be deployed as a workflow. And this workflow basically will be executed by the user application, and it will be passed away to the temporal cluster. So this gonna be like the platform itself, and this will be like deploy on the server, and we can scale it up to different number of instances as we'd like it to be. And the architecture for the temporal basically there's going to be like the front end, but the front end here is not something like the front end application. Yes, there is a front end application like the temporal UI that we can use to check the workflow whether it's running or not, like this one. So whether it's completed or it's failed, and let's say if it's failed, what is the reason? We can jump into the details of the workflow execution, like the retry mechanism, what kind of activities being executed by this temporal, including the event history, something that can be presented like an event sourcing for us basically. So let's say if we want it to be like some auditing, right? Especially for banking, there's going to be like the auditing process. So we can check all of the process by having a look at this kind of event history. And the retry mechanism would be also there. And one thing that should be emphasized is the workflow itself is basically something that is going to be executed only once. So once it is executed by the workflow, we can be sure that there shouldn't be any second workflow for the same transaction being executed twice. So this can guarantee the idempotency as what was asking by Ahmad. And what else? Yeah, the temporal cluster has something like a history like the event history, and it can be short, so it can handle large amount of workflow basically, and it can be persisted into some databases as well, and currently it supports different type of database, both from the SQL base and the NoSQL base, and there is a queue in between. Something like a RabbitMQ can also be implemented, but Temporal itself basically already provide us with its own internal queue, which also pretty scale basically. And there should be like a temporal worker. This is something that we are going to deploy as well. So basically we deploy the workflow application and we deploy the activity. Activity is kind of steps within the workflow. And the temporal worker will be some services that can be scaled up to different number, and it should be listening to some of the queues and try to get the task or the active, and the task here can be divided into workflow task and the activity task. And the temporal worker will be something that's going to execute those tasks for us. And let's say if in between we have like the three process. So if I'm bringing up this, this one. This is one of the case that I'm going to present for today. So we have like the CMS that going to have something like start wiring transfer to transfer some money from one account to another target account. And in between we have like the start money transfer workflow that can be will be handled by the gateway. I think based on my discussion with Aryo, he mentioned about Kong. So this can be Kong's part basically. And this is the core banking that going to perform something like the get account details, and if there's an error occur, it's going to notify some failure, which basically will terminate the workflow immediately. But let's say if we get the account details, it's going to perform some balance validation, and the balance is sufficient, then it's going to perform some ML process. But here I just describe it as the black box, so I'm not going to have some details demo on this one. But the one that I'm going to present is the core banking, which basically is the white box one. That the next step is to withdraw from source account, and let's say if the withdrawal process is failed, we can define how many number of retries that we want it to be. So let's say if we want to retry for 3 times, then it can retry for 3 times. And all of this complexity basically is not going to be written by us because it's already provided by Temporal. So that's the nice thing about Temporal, because we don't have to like write our own implementation that can be like error prone and probably have some bugs, right? So there's those kind of things already provided by Temporal. So we can just focus with the business processes for the withdraw account. And let's say if it retries for 3, then it's already failed 3 times, then we can provide the failure notification. Or otherwise, if it succeeds on the second retry, then it can proceed to the next one to deposit to their target account. And same thing also can be simulated here, the number of retry. But bear in mind that the retry number here is basically something that can be defined up to like 5,000, 10,000. It's up to us basically. And let's say if the SLA is reached for the retry mechanism, then it's still failed. Then the workflow is going to be redirected automatically to the process refund. But as I mentioned before, one thing that is pretty nice here is we just focus with the business process, business logic, which basically can save us much time on how to deal with those kind of non-functional things basically. Yeah, this is the one that we are going to see soon.
Question, Yuri. Go back to the flow. So basically, this box, this is just example. This box on the core banking here, like get account details, validate balance. So basically, this is all our individual microservice which probably we can call that business function lah, yeah, business function.
Yes, correct,
microservice for get account detail, validate balance, withdraw from source account, etc. here. So we can focus on creating individual microservice. Meanwhile, the temporal will do the queuing, yeah, the one who control which tasks run first and go to the next, and doing the if condition here, something like that, yeah.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's correct. Any other one before I jump into the demo? Okay, so I'm going to jump to the demo then. So yeah, Temporal itself is basically have like some different parts as we can see here. So the Temporal cluster, this is not going to be handled by us. So we just need to install the server and we put it inside the cluster, and we can spawn like different number of instances. It's up to us. And the front end also will be handled by the Temporal. So we are not going to deal with all of these complexities basically, including the queue. The queue, we just need to provide the name of the queue from the code, and what we need to build is just the application. And if I go to the application, we have like the workflow, the money transfer workflow, and it's quite straightforward for us to implement the workflow. Yeah, this one. So basically, we just need to like write the workflow in terms of the interface, and by providing some annotation brought from the Temporal SDK, and we just have like one library for the SDK Temporal, and this workflow we can provide like what would be the kind of task going to be executed by this workflow, and within this workflow method we can like have different number of activities, and the activity will be here. So we have like the get customer account, withdraw, deposit, refund. So might be some of us that had seen before about Camunda ZV especially. So we can think that it's almost similar like Camunda brought to us, but what make it different is because Temporal is open source for sure. But the nice thing about Camunda, if I might say, is it has like the graphical UI that we can just drag and drop, right, to make sure that we build the workflow, we build the steps, the activities, and so on through some UI diagram. But the downside of Temporal is we need to code it by ourselves. We need to write it by ourselves. So we need it in terms of the code, the context of the interface, and here will be like the activity implementation, and we can what I'm writing right now is just like the simulation. So I just put some dummy like the dummy database, the in-memory database, and so on. And let's just start the workflow to make it short. So and this is the Temporal UI where we can see number of different workflows executed by our application. So if I start the application, the core banking application, and I have it here for the client. This can be like executed by the front-end application, the endpoint. So let's say if I want to transfer from this source account to the target account, and I will just remove this. It's going to be generated automatically. And 1 million, let's say for 1 million, remove this. And we execute. Yeah, it will, the response can be anything, but the one that I have here is just to respond with the workflow ID, the run ID, the transaction reference number, and the description. And the way how I execute the workflow here is something like an asynchronous process. So that's why when we hit the endpoint, it's going to return immediately with the response. But the process itself is not finished yet. As we can see, if I refresh this one, it's still running, and it can run like a number of years, number of months. So basically, it's a long process. But the way how we design it, it's up to us, right? So this is just simulation, and so let's say we don't have any worker runnings to pick up this workflow task, so it will be still running for forever, almost forever, and there's no timeout. But yes, we can define the timeout, but for now I didn't define any timeout. And in order to perform the transfer process, I need to execute the worker. So if I jump again, yeah, this is the temporal worker that we need to write it by ourselves in order to pick up some tasks, the workflow task and the activity task, and going to execute it. And I run this one, the transfer worker. Yeah, it's going to pull up the task from the task queue, and it's going to execute all of the activities defined within the workflow itself. And if we go back to this one again, yeah, it's completed now. And we can check the details from like number of workers that execute this task. And the ID itself can be distinguished from one worker to another worker. So basically it will be, we can be sure that it's going to be unique based on the instance where it is hosted. So and the process ID as well. And when we run again the worker, it should be like going to perform different number. And the history, we can go back to the history. We can see that the workflow execution here and the activity, like the get customer account and get customer account was like, it seems to be failed once time and then it's trying to get it again. And so basically there was 2 retries here, and it withdraw and deposit and refund. So it means that might be the balance is not sufficient. So it's doing some refund. And this one is also like the event historical that we can check the payload, like this one, and the details of the response as well. So for each of this, so let's say if some failure happened within some of the activities, we can also like so let's say I simulate the transfer workflow. If I go back to this one, okay, so let me check this one. Let me make it fail for this. That I need to execute another frame, another workflow. So let's do it again. Back to here. And we can also like be rest assured that we can have like more than one workflows running at the same time concurrently. So let's say if I trigger another workflow, another transfer from this account, the same account, execute. Yeah, there's no limitation on the number of workflows that are going to run within the temporal cluster, basically. And let's try to run the money transfer worker in. Yes, it seems like there's some logic error. Should be failed actually. I was expecting it is to
It's
be
okay.
failed, but
It's
yeah,
okay.
that's okay. It's okay. Yeah.
It is okay. You have many audience want to asking you question already. Can we running out?
Okay, okay,
Maybe
sure.
Anka first. Anka.
I'm just trying to clarify. So, Mas Yuri, correct me if I'm wrong, yeah. So actually, we can define a workflow, and which is a workflow consists of multiple activity, right?
Yeah.
And when let's say a workflow is triggered, then the task will be created, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's all.
Okay, but I might need to I might need to also clarify some things about the workflow, the task itself, right? So the task itself can be workflow task as well. So as I mentioned before, that we have 2 types of tasks: the workflow task and the activity task. And so let's say if you have some deterministic process that basically like idempotent, right? So we can just define it within the workflow itself. So we don't need to create any activities. So based on the recommendation from Temporal is the activity should be used only for non-deterministic tasks. So something like trying to get something into the database, write something to the database, or probably accessing some services, external services. So this kind of non-deterministic tasks should be applied into the activity. But other than that, we can have like within the workflow itself as workflow tasks.
Alam also have question just now. Alam?
Yeah, simple question. The first one, the queue, the task queue, is it stored within the same cluster or it's different queue like RabbitMQ or ActiveMQ or like Kafka or other things?
By default, it has its own queue, but we can also like bringing up another queue like RabbitMQ, especially, or if we want it to be like Kafka as our message broker, that can also be used basically. It's up to us.
Okay. And then the tasks behind this, behind I mean, like the consumer, it's actually just a pops up, right? Kind of
it pops up. Yeah, kind of pops up. Yeah.
Okay.
But might be instead of building our own one, like we design our own Kafka, we manage it by ourselves, we design the RabbitMQ, and we design the pattern within the RabbitMQ, like the exchange pattern and so on. So it's already handled by Temporal. So we just need to deploy the Temporal server, and then we can jump in immediately into the code.
So it's already within the framework.
Yeah, within the framework. But I won't say this is a framework actually. It is a platform. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Nice.
Thank you.
For this one, maybe the question: are we going to using this? Are we going to using it, or just for like knowledge sharing, or what? Yeah.
Maybe
if
this one, I and Ahmed will evaluate together and then see whether it can be used internally.
Yeah, so for today it is introduction, about temporal usage. But let's say if we see the benefit and there is no something creating concern, etc. Probably we are going to use this for at least for MPN first, right? But if again, this is for today. This is just for the introduction first lah, and let all of us digest this and see what is the benefit or what is the concern, something like that. Yeah.
Okay, so at least go to MPN as a demo, as a first piloting with MPN. That's a plan.
Yeah. I mean, again, today is we present it here first, and we are seeking for feedback, right? Especially from Leo Chan or probably from anyone here lah. Basically, from anyone here. We are gathering the feedback. How about this, right? And let's hear the feedback. Either this is something beneficial or something that having concern, etc. Yeah.
Okay. So we more follow up. So maybe next week we have the follow up with Leo Chan and Yoli again for this one.
Maybe I will find Ahmed together to evaluate this. So this one seems sound good. So you can have more use case, we can elaborate a bit more, not just only NPM. So Ahmed, offline, you also have to gather more information.
Okay. I think my topic maybe already no need because I can carry to next week. We overrun already 5 minutes. Is there anything else? So I only know action item. Basically, this one critical that I need